going on, everybody? Welcome back to the 31 Days of Horror. I am your host, Mood616, and thank you once again for stopping in, guys. Yeah, day 5 here on the 31 Days of Horror Volume 5 is present. Alright, guys, so for today, we're going to take it back to 2008 with a film released by Synapse Films, and this one still is only available on DVD, actually, as far as I know. And it is a film called Frat House Massacre. I don't know why I was stumbling on the word frat, but Frat House Massacre. You knew I had to do a film with massacre in the title. Actually, I wasn't. That wasn't even my mentality picking this one. I actually just really wanted to revisit this film. It's been a long time since I've seen it, and like I said, I just wanted to revisit it. So, basically what we got here is a film that follows these brothers, Sean and Bobby. They are obviously really close, but in the beginning of the film, they're a little bit on each other's nerves a little bit. Anyways, Bobby, heads out for the night one day, and he gets into an accident and ultimately gets put into a coma. Now, Bobby is just graduating, and he's supposed to be heading off to college in the following September with his brother, Bobby. Of course, so now Bobby's in a coma, and Sean, of course, goes back to the college he's been attending, and, he's in this fraternity run by this guy named Mark. The president of this fraternity is absolutely ruthless and brutal. So basically, when Pledge Week happens, Rush Week happens, he does very brutal and vicious and dishonest things to the pledges. And ultimately, if things don't go the way he wants them to go, he disposes of these people by killing them. So, yeah, it's depicting the life in fraternities, the hazing in a very, very dark way. So, of course, Sean is really not down with this, what he's doing with these pledges. He's doing these horrible things to them, and he kind of speaks up, and of course, Mark takes this to heart, and he ultimately tortures and kills Sean also. And just as he kills Sean, Bobby wakes up from his coma, and yeah, so now it's his time to go to the college, and he ultimately, pledges this fraternity to get in there, obviously to exact some revenge against the people that have harmed his brother. So now that is the plot to Frat House Massacre. Now, my thoughts on this one. First off, I will say this is a rather long film. But for some odd reason, the runtime actually doesn't seem to be as long as it is. It runs about 116 minutes. Because it's kind of done in parts. The first 30 to 40 minutes of this movie is Sean's story. Sean at college, Sean being murdered by this frat house and stuff like that. And we get a lot of insight into this frat house. This leader has obviously got some major problems. He's got all these followers. They're doing all these brutal things. We get to see all that type of life and shit like that. And then it jumps to Bobby's story, where now he's there and he's pledging this fraternity. And, within probably about a half an hour in the film, they figure out that he's actually Sean's brother, and it's a weird moment in the film, too, because everyone's kind of like, oh, okay. And then that's pretty much when all the bloodbath starts. The last 45 minutes of this movie, there's tons and tons of carnage. There's blood, gore, people are getting murdered off. Now, the interesting thing about this movie is when the killings start, the murders are actually POV. It's straight Giallo style. It's like POV with a black glove killer, very, very gory and shit like that, and you're like, okay, and then you start kind of thinking about this, like, what the hell's kind of going on here? Now, the movie itself, the narrative is a little bit messy. It does honestly have a little bit of plot holes, because there's a lot of people that, wind up dead and missing in this film. A lot of these pledges go missing, and no one ever is looking for them. The school faculty, the roommates, the families, no one's ever looking for all these people that are going missing. It's very odd, and it's kind of a plot hole, because if you had that many people going missing that were, linked to this one fraternity, you think that somebody would come a-looking, but it never seems to happen. So that's like a major plot hole in this film. The editing is a little bit choppy at times, too. There's a couple scenes where all of a sudden it's just like, one thing is happening, and then all of a sudden you're into another scene in the same part, and you feel like there's things are kind of missing. So those are kind of the downfalls of this. The music is done by Claudio Simonetti. If you're familiar with Claudio Simonetti, he's from the band Goblin. who's done numerous amazing Italian films. This is directed by Alex Pucci, who is an Italian, I believe, but this is an American production, so it doesn't really have that Italian feel whatsoever. And I will say this is probably not one of Claudio Simonetti's finer moments musically-wise, because he's trying to appeal to an American crowd, obviously. The music does not sound Italian whatsoever, so that's a little bit of a downfall also. You know, it's shot pretty well. It's low budget. It has that kind of low budget, gritty, grimy kind of look to it, which I really do like. The acting for the most part is pretty decent. The gore effects, very, very bloody. Lots of kills. The body count in this movie is really damn high, and which is cool. Like I said, all practical effects, which is a total bonus. So that's pretty cool. There's a couple kills in this film that actually make me laugh a little bit, but they're awesome. So, like I said, if you can get through, you know, a lot of the narrative that's going on in the first hour of the film, the second half of the film is pretty crazy. Even though the first half has its moments and shit like that, you know, come the final act when shit gets real bananas and crazy, there's a couple twists in this, and you might think to yourself right away, holy shit, those twists do not make sense at all. There actually is ways to explain them within the film. So, you know, I remember the first time I watched this, I was like, what the fuck just happened, man? But rewatching it this time, I'm like, okay, I can see exactly how these twists and why they happen and stuff. So, they do make a little bit of sense. I would actually like to watch the audio commentary on this with the director, just to explain a couple things, maybe something to do with the editing or what's kind of left in and why things are left in and why things maybe are out. I don't know. But overall, it's a pretty decent watch. You know, I do highly recommend this film if you like your low budget kind of slasher films with many twists. Definitely not a perfect film. Like I said, it does have narrative flaws. Editing's a little bit choppy. The music's not overly the greatest, but it's not bad. I don't think I've ever said that about a Claudio Simonetti score before. It's okay, though. It really is okay. But it's definitely worth your time if you want to get involved with a 116-minute film. Like I said, it doesn't really feel like it's that long, which is a good thing, because there's a lot going on. There's a lot of characters in this movie. And actually, speaking of the characters, this movie right here might even have some of the most unlikable characters in the history of cinema. I mean, everybody that's involved with this fraternity, starting from the top with Mark the President, is an absolute asshole, douchebag, psychotic, fucking jerk-off, man. It's brutal. Like, they are the most unbelievable characters, but, you know, at the same time, I think the depiction of fraternities in the U.S. is kind of like this, you know? It's like, these guys are douchey, they do a lot of douchey things, like, they do a shitload of drugs in this movie. You know, the story actually takes place in 1979 during the disco era, which I should come back and say that the aesthetic and, you know, the wardrobes and everything, the 1979 look actually does look pretty good to this. So during that era, there's a lot of coke, a lot of disco music. And like I said, it depicts the dark side of fraternities. So there's a lot of like women, you know, getting fucked over in this. And even there's a brutal rape scene in this film. So yeah, it's the dark side of, you know, fraternity life and shit like that. But it's all present here. It's probably a little bit more elevated than it usually is in the real world, but it's present here. So, but yeah, Frat House Massacre, pretty good watch. I'm going to come in about a 7 out of 10 on this one. Even though it does have those major problems, I think it's still entertaining enough to warrant that rating. So, yeah, check it out if you have never seen Frat House Massacre. It's definitely worth your time. So, that is going to do it for day 5, guys. I'll check you guys tomorrow with an older film. And till then, deuces!